Californians will march for life on the 22nd of this month, making for the second time they'll do so since the federal right to abortion was reversed across America. Here in the Golden State, access to that procedure has been enshrined in the state constitution, but in other states, obtaining one has become more and more difficult as it's become a bigger and bigger issue in this year's presidential election. Republican consultant Tim Rosales and Democratic analyst Andrew Acosta now with me live to talk more about the impact of an abortion stance announced by one of the presumptive candidates yesterday. We're talking about former President Donald Trump. Gentlemen, good morning to you.
Good morning. Good morning.
538 reporting that as of February, 71% of all registered voters in this country said abortion should be legal in all or most cases. But that is not the agenda Republicans have pushed nationwide, instead advocating for bans on the procedure after 15 weeks, in some states after 6. Yesterday, many of those folks thought the head of their party would give their position a boost, announcing his position on abortion. But Donald Trump passed the buck, some say, deferring to whatever a given state decides. Tim, is he alienating too many parts of the GOP with that stance?
Thanks for having me. And no, I really don't think so. Looking at the data, you hit it correctly, which is in terms of what people identify themselves as, a majority of Americans, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, identify themselves as pro-choice. And that's how they see themselves. It doesn't necessarily mean that they may be, particularly fans of abortion per se or anything like that. But the fact is that that's how people are seeing and identifying themselves. And so therefore, I think the stance by Donald Trump is probably in line with that and as a response to that. And at the end of the day, I don't know, and we haven't really seen a ton of evidence where you have voters who may not necessarily identify with the president on that particular issue right now, that they're going to sit home or not necessarily vote for Donald Trump just because of that particular issue. So I don't think it alienates any Republicans at all.
How about you, Andrew? Is this turning off some Republicans? There's been a lot of grousing about this.
I kind of agree with Tim on this. I think voters are looking at, they're not. I think a lot of this is already baked into the cake of where they are, and some of these issues obviously you're going to see a lot more ads about abortion from the Democratic side. The Republicans will have ads about immigration and economy, but really this is it's pure politics from Donald Trump, and he's all over the place on these issues, and none of this is shocking because he's depending on what day it is and what year it is, he's on both sides of most issues.
And speaking to that issue, or we might call it a tactic, one of the first things that Dem said about this video after it was released is that, expect him to flip between now and November. Do you see a flip on this announcement about abortion between now and November, Andrew?
No, but he's the guy that takes credit for overturning Roe by putting the judges on the Supreme Court. So, whatever he says, there's enough fodder for Democrats to go at him on this. I don't know if people are waiting to hear more on his position on this because, again, I think people kind of know where he is, and Democrats are going to use what he said against them, against other Republicans.
Okay. Tim, do you see him flipping this and somehow changing the message between now and November?
I don't necessarily think so. I think he can still say, hey, look, what we got, the decision from the Supreme Court was one that put this decision back to the states, which is what many conservatives and Republicans have been asking for years and years and years. So the fact is they got exactly what they wanted. And now he's simply saying, that the states should be the ones making up their minds and whatever it is that they want to do on this specific issue. So I think he can be consistent and not necessarily have to kind of change course midstream. But Andrew is not wrong in that former President Trump has had a history of kind of moving back and forth on several issues.
Let's turn to the other presumptive candidate in this presidential race, current President Biden. No secret he is not doing well with younger voters in general, and specifically over the situation in Gaza as Israel retaliates against Hamas. Is the move he made yesterday by expanding student loan debt relief and announcing it in a swing state enough to kind of buy the support he needs from this group, Andrew? We're talking about 30 million people who could get more help by this fall if this particular deal is finalized.
Yeah, potentially, if the deal is finalized. I'm not sure there's a one magic slogan that's going to get a bunch of young people motivated. I think this is a tough slog that the president's facing. He's done a lot of work on other issues that are important to young people, like the environment. And I've seen some of the numbers that it's just not sticking. So is it not that they haven't actually invested enough resources to target those people yet? So we'll see. I mean, what are we in April? We got a long way to go to November. So, we'll probably have a better idea of how fired up or not fired up people are in October. But, March March in California showed that people weren't exactly doing cartwheels to go vote. And that's a lot of driven by top of the ticket and not by, a ballot measure or, a city council candidate. So, but, November's a different deal. We got a long way to go to get there.
Tim, is President Biden doing enough to potentially buy votes here with this student loan debt relief?
I think it's going to take a whole lot more than that, because I think where young people are at, and let's say everybody, people who are under 50, is they're not necessarily relating to a particular student loan issue or those types of things. They're looking for broader, more global change. You talked about what's going on in Israel and the Palestinian state, and also on the economy here in the United States, and public safety, a variety of other issues. And that's where you see these groups begin to fracture, and the president's going to have a real hard time winning them back, because they do have other options. They've got Donald Trump, who doesn't necessarily relate as well to them. You've got Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is getting a little bit more momentum, and he's on it seems every hot podcast that there is. Kennedy is on there talking to this group, and so it's not a natural constituency for Trump or Biden. And you have someone like Kennedy, or or another candidate who could really occupy that space. But as Andrew said, we're in April, and there's a long way to go until November hits in the general election. Yeah, a lot of those young voters may check out over the summer, depending on what their summer plans are, and then kind of clue back into this. And everything from Israel to this student loan debt situation could be vastly different between now and then. As always, gentlemen, we appreciate your insight. Thank you so much for hanging out with me this morning.
Thank you.